Hello friends, today I discuss about conversion from NFA to FA. For this you have an algorithm which you already read from reference book. Here we explain it by using example. Applying the subset construction to convert an NFA to FA. For this either NFA or transition table for NFA is given. Here in NFA Q0 to 0 and 1 Q0, Q0 to 1 Q1, Q1 to 0 Q2, Q1 to 1 Q2, Q2 to 0 Q3, Q2 to 1 Q3. From NFA, draw the transition table for this NFA. Here Q0 is the starting state which is indicated by arrow and Q3 is the final state which is indicated by asterisk sign. From these details we have construct FA for this NFA. First, for FA transition table you have an input state Q0, initial state Q0 to 0, Q0 to 0, you reach at Q0, Q0 to 1, you reach at either Q0 or Q1. So Q0 to 0, Q0 and Q0 to 1, Q0, Q1. This subset constructions is written as transition function delta 1 Q0 to 0 is equal to state Q0 and delta 1 Q0 to 1. This one is Q0, Q1. So Q0 to 0, Q0, Q0 to 1, Q0, Q1. Here Q0, Q1 is a new state. So consider it as a input state. Now Q0, Q1 is your input state. So find 0 and 1 transition from this state Q0, Q1 to 0 and Q0, Q1 to 1. For constructions Q0, Q1 to 0, find Q0 to 0 union Q1 to 0. For Q0 to 0, you reach at Q0 and Q0 to 0 you reach at Q0 and Q1 to 0 you reach at Q2. So Q0 union Q2 is equal to Q0 Q2. So Q0 Q1 to 0 is equal to Q0 Q2. For one transition Q0 Q1 to 1. For Q0 to 1 union transition function Q1 to 1. Q0 to 1, you have a Q1, Q2 and Q1 to 1, you have Q2. So Q0, Q1 union Q2 is equal to Q0, Q1, Q2. So Q0, Q1 to 1 is equal to Q0, Q1 and Q2. Here Q0, Q2 is a new state. So consider that as a input state. Q0, Q1, Q2 is also a new state. So next consider Q0, Q1, Q2 as a new state. Now Q0, Q2 is a new state. So find subset constructions for Q0, Q2. Q0 to 0 you have Q0 and Q2 0, Q3. So Q0, Q2 to 0, Q0, Q3 and Q0, Q2 to 1, Q0 to 1, Q0, Q1, Q2 to 1, Q0, Q1, Q3. So Q0, Q2 to 1, Q0, Q1, Q3. Here Q0, Q1, Q2 is also a new state. So next consider Q0, Q1, Q2. This procedure is continuous until you have find the new state. At one state there is no any new state At that time you have to draw the automata for this. First starting at Q0. Q0 to 0 you reach at Q0. Q0 to 1 reach at Q0 Q1. So Q0 to 1 next state is Q0 Q1. Next Q0 Q1 to 0 state is Q0 to Q0 Q1 to 0 state is Q0 Q2. Next Q0 Q1 to 1 state is Q0 Q1 Q2. Q0 Q1 to 1 state is Q0 Q1 Q2. So draw the finite automata for the given NFA. This one is the final FA for after converting the NFA. In NFA you have a Q0 state. At Q0 state there are maybe multiple input for same state. Here 1 and 1. After converting it into FA, there is no any multiple input. For each and every state 0 and 1 input is there. For here for Q0 0 input 1 input, Q0 Q1 Q2 0 input 1 input. For final state in NFA, final state is Q3. So in which state Q3 comes? Here Q0 Q3, Q0 Q1 Q3, Q0 Q2 Q3 and Q0 Q1 Q2 Q3. All 4 states including Q3 states. So these 4 states are final states. Thank you.